Ladies and gentlemen of the Twin Tiers, good evening and welcome to the 44th Political Pundit Night, exclusively right here on WETM, Next Star Television in Elmira, New York. This happens to be the place for political punditry in the Twin Tiers. And I'm glad to be on this platform of WETM NBC Next Star Television in Elmira, New York. It really is terrific. I'm Dr. Stephen Coleman, the PhD of politics, and I'll be your host this evening, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer. I'm here with you tonight. And there's a lot to talk about tonight, from the war in Iran to the economy to the November election to the presidency of Donald J. Trump. Now, tonight's panel of pundits, experts, and leaders, well, it includes Jeff Murray. Jeff is a veteran journalist, Star Gazette, USA Today Network. He's been doing journalism in the Twin Tiers for decades, at least 3 decades. He's the dean of journalism in the Twin Tiers. Also tonight on the show, Nick Weinstein, professional pollster for Signal, former political director, Republican Attorneys General Association, and the former mayoral candidate in Elmira, New York. So that's Nick Weinstein. He rocks, so he'll be here with us. Dr. Joseph Kolasinski, associate professor at Elmira College. He's a mathematical and statistical expert, and he's interested in politics and knows what he's talking about. So it's always a pleasure to have Dr. Kolasinski on the panel. Georgia Verdier is here tonight, political analyst, community activist, and member of the Steuben County Hall of Fame. By the way, if I'm misspeaking when it comes to any of you, you can correct me when you come on later. Just say, hey, Dr. Coleman, you said something that was incorrect. Well, say it, folks, because I do that a lot. I'm your incorrect political host here. But anyway, just correct me if I'm wrong at any time. So Georgia Verdier is here. Dan Mandel, he's the mayor of Elmira, and want to talk to Dan Mandel. When we get to Dan Mandel, I want the latest report on the geese that no longer are in Eldridge Park, and what's going on with that. And now Tom Santulli, folks, has a new computer system or something like that. And apparently he's having issues, but he's going to be joining us when he can. So Tom Santulli, former Chemung County executive, will be joining us. Hopefully, God willing, he'll be here. Also here tonight, Susan Betz-Tutoma, attorney, pastor of the Shiloh Community Church in Corning, Susan Betz-Tutoma. Deborah Lynch is here, a member of the New York State Democratic Committee, Hammondsport Village trustee, and she's always a great person to have on the show because she gives articulate viewpoints and delineates her viewpoints quite well. That's Deborah Lynch. Dr. Richard Dozier, author, pastor, and educator, will be joining us, hopefully. He'll be coming from Ghana in West Africa. Sometimes it's difficult with the transmission from Ghana to this program, but just the same, Dr. Dozier will do his best to be here, the author, pastor, and educator, live and direct from Ghana in West Africa, hopefully. Christopher Callis is here.
Here, Dr. Coleman.
Yes.
I'm here, Dr. Coleman.
Well, that's good. That's good. That's wonderful. And we'll be with you as soon as we can. Okay, I'm doing the introductions now. I'm glad you're here. That is terrific. Live and direct from West Africa. You're here, and I really appreciate that. Dr. Richard Dozier, you do a great job, and thank you for joining us. And we'll be with you shortly with the other folks on the panel. Christopher Callis, I was just mentioning, community educator, is with us this evening. Dr. James Hassel is on the list to be with us. I talked to Dr. Hassel the other day, and anyway, we've been in communication, and hopefully he'll be here. Again, we have all these folks zooming in from all over the place, from other countries, from all over the Southern Tier, And so hopefully everybody will be here. Willie Owens is here. Willie Owens is a community activist, youth advocate, and founder of the Chemung County Youth Football League. So Willie Owens is with us tonight. So what a group of experts and community leaders here tonight. And that's one of the great things about Political Pundit Night. You don't find this kind of a program anywhere when it comes to local TV with all these folks here, all these leaders all at once. And I really want to thank everybody for being here tonight and so forth. At this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to turn to Jeff Murray. Veteran journalist, Star Gazette, USA Today Network, the dean of journalism in the Twin Tiers. He's not the associate dean. Jeff Murray is the dean of journalism in the Twin Tiers. Um, Jeff Murray, the November midterm election is less than 100 days away. It's less than 100 days away. It's going to be on Tuesday, November the 3rd. At this point, Jeff Murray, could you delineate your thoughts on the midterms? Jeff Murray.
Thank you, Dr. Coleman. I'd be happy to. And you mentioned I've been doing this for more than 3 decades. It's actually been more than 4, but who's counting? So yeah, if nothing else, it proves that I'm really getting old. As far as the midterm elections, it's definitely going to be quite a show this year. There are a lot of factors at play. I think I'll go over a few of them. Of course, at the top of the list is just historically, as you know, the party that controls the White House tends to not do so well in the midterm elections. We've seen that over and over again. Bill Clinton was elected in the '94 election. The Republicans took over the House. It happened with Obama. It happened in Trump's first term. So there's a very good possibility that just if history repeats itself, you might see the Democratic Party taking at least one house of Congress this year. So that's obviously a factor we have to keep in mind. Beyond that, there are a couple of wild card entries I think that could very easily play a big role in this. And our last get together 3 months ago, I talked about the Iran war and how I felt that might have a big impact on the election, particularly the longer it drags out. As we saw, the war had an immediate impact on gasoline prices, which had an impact on the rest of the economy. If that goes on for any length of time, that's not going to be play in the favor of President Trump and the Republican Party. I don't think there's any question about that. I think even people who support the war and believe that's a just cause, that Iran is a major player when it comes to terrorism in the world, and they need to be neutered or made to be less of a threat. I think even people who believe that at some point are going to say, geez, I can't afford these gas prices to keep going up. I can't afford the price of groceries going up and everything else. So I think if the war continues on as we get closer to the midterms, I think you might see some of the Republican support eroding. On the other hand, I think I've seen people sell President Trump short in the past. There are times when they were saying, he'd overplayed his hand, he was going to lose, and then he'd pull out a victory. That very, very well may happen this time. If Trump can find a way to end this war with a clear American victory, they can walk away and say, hey, Iran is no longer a nuclear threat. They've been neutralized as far as being a top state sponsor of terrorism. I think you'll see gas prices drop. I think you'll see the economy will improve, and he'll come out of the smelling like a rose. But again, that's a big if. Right now, it could go either way. The other factor I think we can't overlook is the what's going right now on in the Democratic Party itself. We started seeing in the 2018 election some young Democratic candidates who were a little bit farther to the left than most mainstream Democrats. You saw People like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, elected in New York City, defeated a longtime incumbent Democrat in her district. People like Rashida Tlaib in Michigan, um, and they were embraced by many of the mainstream Democrats at the time. Now you're seeing more and more people from the Democratic Socialist Party. The new mayor in New York City, who won in November, and I've seen indications people are already seeing some having some buyer's remorse over that. But in many other places, you're seeing those Democratic Socialist candidates defeating incumbents in many cases in Democratic primaries, and they're going to be going up against Republican opponents in the general election. Now, I know that there are going to be a lot of people who will vote for somebody with a D next to the name, no matter who it is. Just like I'm sure there are people who will vote for whatever Republican is running. On the other hand, I think you have to look at some of the the moderate or the independent people out there. Some of them might be a little uncomfortable with the direction some of these Democratic candidates are taking, and that might have a negative effect on the party overall in the midterms. I've even seen some of the Democratic leaders starting to question just how far left some of these people can go before they fall off the cliff. So I think that's there are many factors, and at this point I can't make a prediction because there's so many balls in the air right now. It could go either way, but it's definitely going to be a very, very interesting midterm election to watch develop.
Jeff, thank you for your comments. Is the midterm election essentially going to be a referendum on the second presidency of Donald Trump, in your opinion? A referendum on Trump?
I do in a lot of ways, and that's historically that often happens. Sometimes even if you have a president who is personally popular, I mean, you look at when Obama won his second term, he also lost Congress. So you didn't get that coattail effect that you've got in many cases in the past. And as I said, I think as Trump's popularity goes, or lack of popularity, I think you're going to see that's going to have an impact on Republican candidates. And I also think that if Democrats take back even one house of Congress, it's going to be very difficult for the president to realize any of the rest of his agenda. I mean, he's having a hard time getting his agenda through now when a Republican control both houses. Granted, they have a slim majority in both houses, but you just look at the Save America Act, which I've seen polls have shown are fairly popular with the people, but and it passed quite easily in the House of Representatives, but in the Senate, where the Republicans do have a majority, it's been stalled for months. And I'm sure the president is frustrated by that. I'm sure he's doing a lot of arm twisting behind the scenes trying to get that one passed. But if he's having a difficult time now getting his top priorities through when the Republicans control both houses, if Democrats can make the gains and take either the House or the Senate or possibly both, he would definitely fill the description of a lame term president for his last 2 years.
Yeah, Jeff, I agree with you. If the Democrats can win either the House or the Senate or both, Donald Trump will be rendered politically impotent, and they'll be investigating the dickens out of Donald Trump for his last 2 years in office, and probably there'll be a move to impeach Donald Trump his last 2 years. Again, all the Democrats have to do, well, I guess it's a big challenge, but all they have to do is take the House and or the Senate, and things will change drastically for Donald J. Trump. Again, that election, less than 100 days away, the midterm election on Tuesday, November the 3rd. I just wanted to mention a few things I've just seen recently in the news. This is from USA Today. Trump's approval hits new low in the latest poll. President Donald Trump's approval rating has fallen to a new low since returning to the White House, according to a new Economist YouGov poll released Tuesday. That's this past Tuesday. with just 34% of Americans approving of his job performance. The survey found 62% of Americans disapprove of Trump's performance, up 2 percentage points from the previous week, while 63% say the country is headed in the wrong direction. And this is from CNN, the cable news network. It says midterms outlook, I'm quoting here, less than 100 days before the midterms, voters are agitating for wholesale change in Congress and looking to the Democratic Party to make that happen. A new CNN poll shows Democrats leading Republicans on the generic ballot by 8 points among registered voters and holding a 20-point advantage among voters who say they are extremely motivated to vote. So that again is from the CNN. You mentioned Jeff Murray, the socialists and the left wingers in the Democratic Party. They I think are going to do well in primaries. They have done pretty well in primaries, but then comes the general election, and they may not do as well in the general election. But this is from the Washington Journal. Washington Journal, Democratic Socialists of America's new platform calls for abolishing ICE and the U.S. Senate. The Democratic Socialists of America released updated platform calls for a sweeping remake of the political system, including eliminating the U.S. Senate and abolishing U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, which is the organization, this organization has publicly advocated since 2018. The platform's language calls for replacing the president and the Supreme Court. That's right, you heard this right. The socialist platform calls for replacing the president and the Supreme Court with an executive and judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. Now, that'll be a big switch. The socialists argue that these changes would curb concentrated power in Washington and create a more democratic system. So, my goodness, there's a whole lot of things going on. Jeff Murray, thank you for your commentary. I'm going to have you back at the end of the show. And you can analyze how you think things went with the program. Next up, I want to turn to Nick Weinstein, professional pollster for Signal, former political director, Republican Attorneys General Association, and former Corning mayoral candidate. Nick Weinstein, we'd like to get your take on what you just heard from Jeff Murray. Nick Weinstein.
Thanks, Dr. Coleman. Pleasure to participate as always. And look, I think I agree for the most part with Jeff's analysis. We do at Signal a national survey every month. And I think at the beginning of July, the generic ballot was somewhere around, D+6, D+7 in that survey. And that's, the beginnings of, a potential wave election for the Democrats. But we don't decide congressional elections at the national level. We don't, vote for party, like a parliamentary system, like we see in other countries. Elections come down to candidates and candidates running in particular districts. And this is a different map and a different moment than, previous election cycles. On the Senate side of things, the Democrats have a really tough uphill road for them to hoe if they want to take back the Senate. They've had a disaster in Maine with their preferred candidate himself, a Democratic socialist, also a Nazi and a rapist, apparently, being forced to drop out of the race. And they've replaced him with another extremely flawed candidate in the opposition research dump that has come on him with 100 days out from the election. That seems like a race where, Susan Collins may hold on in a deep blue state in a race that the Democrats just absolutely have to win. And, the Democrats are contending with, some other extreme candidates and some other candidates that are far from their most competitive candidates in Senate races that they must win. So I feel pretty good about Republicans holding on to the Senate. I mean, you never want to take anything for granted in this political environment. And then in the House, there's just way fewer competitive districts than there have been in years past. I think in 2010, when Republicans won 63 House seats to, roar back into control of the House of Representatives, there were over 110 congressional districts where the margin was less than 5 points towards the Republicans or the Democrats. And today there's there's half of that, or a little bit more than half of that, and the Republican margin is already fairly small in the House of Representatives, as Jeff mentioned earlier. So, insofar as there's a Democratic wave, it may not be as big as people think it's going to be, just because the Democrats don't have as much ground to pick up in the House, and they've got to contend with some challenging candidates there as well. So I think there's a non-zero chance that the Republicans hold on in both the House and the Senate. I think if you were, to be betting on it, the best bet would probably be Republicans hold the Senate and the Democrats hold the House of Representatives when everything's all said and done. But it remains to be seen. We've got an electorate that is angry about the economy, an electorate that is frankly dissatisfied with both the Republicans and the Democrats. Neither party has particularly high marks with the American people, and I think it's a vote out the establishment politicians kind of political moment. And interestingly, in our polling, there really isn't a huge difference between the motivation of voters coming to vote in November to support President Trump's agenda versus the voters that are coming to the polls in November to vote against President Trump's agenda. This is much less a referendum, in my opinion, on President Trump than it is on the economy and the future of the country. And it'll be interesting to see what the American people decide over the next 90-some days.
Yes, I agree with you, Nick. The economy is going to be a big deal in this election. The Dems, you're just talking about the House and the Senate. The Dems need uh, overall a gain of 3 seats in the House to take control, and the Dems will need 4 in the Senate to take control. That's
Yeah.
less likely to happen, I think. But all the Democrats need to cause havoc to Donald Trump is to take just one chamber. If they take the House, then over the next 2 years, Trump is going to have trouble passing things, and there's going to be all kinds of investigations and so on. So, Nick Weinstein, I want to, please, I want you to, when you're listening to what's going on the rest of the show, chime in. You're a political expert, and we're really lucky to have you on this program. You're a political professional, and my goodness, started out in Corning in politics, and we have from Corning to Washington, D.C. You've done a great job and done a great job on this program. Speaking of the program, I wanted to mention you're watching the 44th Political Pundit Night, the Summer Sizzler edition, exclusively on mytwintiers.com. Now, the next Political Pundit Night, people sometimes say, when will the next Political Pundit Night be, Dr. Coleman? Well, it's going to be number 45, and it will take place on Thursday night, October the 29th, less than 1 week before the November 3rd midterm election. Right here, exclusively on mytwintiers.com. It's the home of political talk in the Twin Tiers, mytwintiers.com. Again, number 45 Political Pundit Night on Thursday night, October the 29th, less than 1 week before the November 3rd midterm election. Be here, folks, or be square. I want to thank some people at WETM. It takes a lot to put on this program. It takes a lot of people to put on this program and a lot of effort. And I want to thank the staff and management of WETM, NBC, Nexstar Television in Elmira, New York, for providing the platform for tonight's show. And a special thanks to Patrick Allen. That's right, Patrick Allen, doing a great job. Valerie Miller. Valerie is back at the station tonight helping us out. Valerie Miller at WETM. Jim Turpin, the news director. Steve Eaton, the general manager. Also, a special thanks to my executive producer, the one and only Dennis Sweeney, also a well-known sportscaster in the Twin Tiers, Dennis Sweeney. Again, WETM, I can't say enough about WETM. It continues to be the leader in public affairs programming in the Twin Tiers. So far on tonight's program, we've heard from Jeff Murray, who for decades, over 4 decades, has been the Dean of Politics of the Twin Tiers. We've heard from Jeff Murray. We just heard from Nick Weinstein. And now it's time to move over to Joseph Kolosinski, who's a political expert, a statistical and mathematical expert. Joseph, as you size things up, and after listening to Nick Weinstein, and after listening to Jeff Murray, Joseph Kolosinski, how do you size things up, and what's your reaction to what you've heard so far on tonight's 44th Political Pundit Night? Joseph Kolosinski, professor.
Well, first of all, Steve, thanks for having me on again. And yeah, and I do actually want to talk about the election, and I do want to say, welcome back to Analyst Nick. It's much more fun. It's much more fun for me when you're in this mode. But a lot of what Nick says here is pretty spot on. I want to put some context on some of it, though. I think there have been a lot of people who label themselves democratic socialists winning some primaries across the country. I don't think the lesson there is that the party's moving to the left. I think the lesson there is that Democrats are voting for people who they think are going to fight. And I think that's the thread that goes through all of those races. And ultimately, there's a tiny number, other than as a scare factor, that's a tiny number of people who are kind of on the fringe of the electorate. But one of the things that's interesting is that a week ago, Donald Trump did his little national speech about election security, and like so much of his stuff, you look at any kind of fact checking on that speech, and there's a ton of it that is just misleading or flat out false. There's no evidence that our system is falling catastrophically short. That thing about voting machines being vulnerable was a story that was internal to Venezuela and didn't affect the United States. There's an infinitesimal number of people who've dead people or non-citizens who are voting, and far from enough to actually affect the election. But a thing that I think this shows us is that Donald Trump is worried about the election, right? I mean, and that's what that whole push to redistrict everything everywhere mid-cycle also tells us. And he's got reason to be worried, right? You mentioned that his approval rating is at 34%, which is a new low. I think he can pull it. I think he can pull it out. I'm rooting for him to pull into the 20s. But if he stays at 34%, right? In 2018, when the Democrats won 40 seats in the House, he was at 45. And that's about where Biden was in 2022. That's about where Obama was in 2010. And they got shellacked. This is a very different environment from a lot of these other midterm elections that we've looked at recently. So yeah, it's not a completely done deal that the Democrats are going to win the House, but it is just extraordinarily likely. That's where the smart money is, and where Nick, I think, is right that it's a really uphill battle. Would be a really uphill battle for the Democrats to win the Senate. It's amazing that that's even. It's amazing that that even seems to be on the table. That says a lot about the political environment we're working in. Fox News, who I think actually has pretty good numbers on this sort of stuff, has 4 Senate seats as toss-ups, and I think Texas is more vulnerable than they're giving it credit for. But that's 5 seats that could potentially change hands. I don't know if they will, but the Democrats would need 3 of them to have a majority. It is amazing that that's even possible. With this map, they should have no prayer. And so, yeah, the smart money is that the Democrats are going to keep this, they're going to win the House, and the Republicans are going to keep the Senate, but it could be a wild ride come election night.
Joseph, let me ask you. There was a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion over the months about the redistricting and the gerrymandering in many, many states. At the end of the day, is that going to help the Republicans more than the Democrats? All of this redistricting and gerrymandering, Joseph.
I think it does help. I think it's going to blunt. It's going to blunt the advantages the Democrats are going to have. In part because some of the processes that have been set up in Democratic states are just harder because they have independent commissions, and so they have to go to the public and have actual votes as opposed to pushing something through a legislature. Yeah, I mean, because of that, and because some of the like the Virginia thing, ultimately the Virginia redistricting didn't ultimately go through. The Republicans will be about like +5 for this, and then
Okay.
who knows for 2028, because I don't know
Right.
that they're done
So
redistricting.
for the midterms, all of this redistricting and gerrymandering will help the Republicans manage to get a net gain. Is that what you're saying?
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Okay, thank you.
What I'm saying is that they're probably going to win 5 seats that they wouldn't have before the redistricting.
Okay.
I think the Democrats still take the House, but it's
Okay.
not going to be by the same margin that they would have before the redistricting.
Okay, and if they take the House, that really means they can be a blocker to Donald Trump the last 2 years of his second term, and they
Yeah.
can, they'll take over the committees and they can really investigate Donald Trump, try to impeach him again, and all the rest, Joseph Kolosinski. I do appreciate. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, at this point, I hope they don't bother with the repeat impeachment, because Trump is on his way to irrelevancy, and that's just a fight that they don't need. Particularly when I mean, he's in his last two years. Yeah, they don't need that fight. I would rather they didn't do it.
Okay, of course, though, Donald Trump loves to fight. He likes to fight with everybody. And that's one issue. If you're fighting with everybody all the time, sometimes sooner or later, people get a little bit upset and don't really, it's harder to persuade them and get them on board. But we'll see what happens. So far tonight on this 44th edition of Political Pundit Night, we've heard from Jeff Murray, veteran journalist, Star Gazette, USA Today Network. We've heard from Nick Weinstein, professional pollster for Signal, former political director of the Republican Attorney General Association, that's Attorneys General Association, and former Corning mayoral candidate, Nick Weinstein. Dr. Joseph Kolosinski has just weighed in, associate professor, Elmira College. Again, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to talk about, folks, and everybody else on the panel has been listening, and a lot of issues to talk about also that if you want to, talk about them this evening, we can talk about Iran, we can talk about the economy, which I think is one of the most important things about this election coming up. James Carville at one point said when it came to an election, it's the economy, stupid. The economy is very important when it comes to this election in November. And of course, President Trump, a referendum, I think, on President Trump. Up next on the panel, I'd like to bring in Georgia Verdier. Georgia Verdier is a political activist, a political analyst, very active in the community, a member of the Steuben County Hall of Fame. My goodness, the Steuben County Hall of Fame. My goodness, that's an honor. That's an honor. My goodness, they would never put me in the Hall of Fame. They would put me in the Hall of Shame. But anyway, I'm very happy for Georgia. She's really done a lot of great things all over the Southern Tier. she has won a lot of awards. So, Georgia Verdier, what do you think about what you've heard this evening, and what else do you want to talk about? Georgia Verdier, you're up next. Georgia.
First, first of all, I'd like to say good evening to everybody and to thank you, Dr. Coleman, for this political discussion. I've heard a lot of stuff, for lack of better terminology, and in terms of the war and the politics in general, and especially the midterms. One of the things I've observed, people are tired and they are saying enough is enough. People are saying they would like to wake up in the morning and feel safe. Things are spinning out of control, the economy, political violence, just so many things that we used to have a little bit of handle on, just now, just seemingly out of control. The ice storm, which killing people and walking away and things that just didn't happen before to this degree. And so many people who voted for this current administration saying they are tired. They didn't know that they were going to be hit directly by these political this political behavior. They thought it was going to be happening to those people they didn't like. But now they are hurting, especially in terms of the economy and the grocery store. I talked to many of them who said they voted, but they're so sorry they did. They would never do it again. So I think they're getting a wake-up call that we're all on Ship America together. And what impacts one directly will impact all indirectly, or something will happen. And so I think it's a wake up call to all of us to really realize that it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about us. And no matter how we talk about what's going on, we cannot separate this from the leader because he has set the tone for all of this craziness that we're enduring, political, in terms of politics, such as division, racism, hate, and all kinds of and the economy, all of this under his leadership. So you can't separate him from that. So you can talk all day and say, oh, well, these things are happening. Well, they're happening under his leadership. So if I was the leader, they will be saying that's happening under Georgia's leadership. So he will not escape this. And I think many of the people who voted for this will wake up and think, well, I'm not going back on that ship. Also, a lot of people are afraid to take a stand against him because there's violence. Many times people are threatened and that about their jobs or their families and things of that nature. And fear can neutralize people. So there are a lot of crazy behavior going on that is causing us to be on a ship that's seeming to be sailing nowhere. But in terms of the midterms, I believe change is coming because after a while, you get tired of all of this and say, we have a choice between the devil and the deep blue sea. The devil might be a 10 and the deep blue sea an 8. So let's go for the deep blue sea. So I believe we're going to see some change. They might not, the Democrats might not take both houses, but I believe there will be some major change to bring about change in the country. And in view of that, I just want to say, I view America as, and I'm going to read this for you, as an almost limitless ocean of possibilities. However, over the past year or so, a lot of debris has accumulated in the water. The debris will not stop the flow as everything is seasonal. And I believe that this season will end soon and new leadership will bring about some change or a major change. One thing we can be assured of that this administration or the leader won't last forever. Everything is seasonal. No matter how much you like winter, summer will come. And we're seeing seasonal changes in weather, and I believe we're going to see it in politics. So I'm just encouraging people to stay hopeful and most importantly, take their souls to the polls.
Thank you, Georgia. I like that phrase. Take your souls to the polls, and I think this is going to be a very important election. Obviously, traditionally, historically, the party that does not have the presidency does well in the midterms. But you know, Donald Trump has befuddled and surprised a lot of political pundits and experts. So we'll see what happens. At this point, and my analysis is that the Republicans are likely to keep the Senate and likely to lose the House, with the Democrats winning in the House, and that's going to there's going to be Donald Trump will therefore be hamstrung during the last 2 years of his second term in office. Of course, he thinks this is his third term in office because he thinks he won the second time around, which nobody quite believes. But anyway, that's the situation with that. So far tonight, we've heard from Jeff Murray, Nick Weinstein, Dr. Joseph Kolosinski, Georgia Verdier, and I appreciate Georgia for all she has done over the years for the community, and all she's done for this program. She has been on this program since the very beginning, and I really appreciate Georgia's input and comments every time we have this show. This is the 44th Political Pundit Night, live on mytwintears.com. And next up is Mayor Mandel. The mayor of Elmira is here tonight, Mayor Dan Mandel. Mayor Mandel, what do you think about these midterm elections? How do you think things are going to go? Are you happy with the way things are going? What say you, Mayor Mandel?
Well, good evening, Steve. Thanks again for having me on your program. I'm glad to be here with these fantastic people that are on with us tonight, on with me as well. I think right now I'm happy the way things are going for the most part, but I don't think everybody's happy with that. The economy, there's some people think the economy is not doing so well, and I talk to other people that think it's doing fine. I can say this past quarter for sales tax in New York was up by over 6.8%, which shows people are spending money. Do I think it's a long haul for the Republicans to keep the House? I agree with everyone else that's on here, and yes, it will be. Historically, the party in power loses the House. The X factor in this is one thing is the redistricting was in the favor of the Republicans. And the other thing is there's some Democrats, and I heard it on a panel today, that aren't happy with the Democratic Party and the way it's going with the Democratic Socialists of America. So we'll see how that all plays out. The Senate, I think, is going to stay Republican right now. I can't see the Democrats winning the U.S. Senate. It's just too much of an uphill battle, especially what just happened in Maine. So I think it's going to be an interesting race. Now, Iran will play a big part in this. It's not a popular war. In my opinion, it was a war of necessity based on where Iran was with its nuclear weapons program and the fact they're ready to break out a nuclear weapon, which we all know they would use in a heartbeat. So it was one of the things, darned if you do, darned if you don't, if you were Trump in that position. But it's going to have a bearing on this election if some things are not cleaned up by the midterms. It's going to hurt him for sure.
Mayor Mandel, I think that the situation in Iran is a mousetrap, and I think Donald Trump right now is um, has been caught in the Iranian mousetrap. How do you think he's going to get out of the situation in Iran? How is he going to extricate America from Iran? Because they are engaging in asymmetric warfare. They
Right.
keep hitting America in ways, and we keep, responding. We respond at times very forcefully. Other times we take a break. Donald Trump recently said, "Well, it's our turn now to fight." They hit us, so it's our turn to hit them. And at one point they hit us, and we announced that there was a surprise attack. Wait a minute now, this is a war. I hear complaints there's a surprise attack on America. Wait a minute, we're in a war. And in World War II, with the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor, that was a surprise attack. Getting attacked in the Iranian situation is no surprise. So, Mayor Mandel, what do you think? How can we get out of Iran and not drain our national treasure, use all our weapons, and be worse off?
Yeah.
What do you think?
This is the whole problem with this, and it's frustrating me the way he stops and starts this so-called war. He should have finished him off to begin with. You can't negotiate with these people. He should have brought them to their knees, where he had enough leverage where the regime collapsed and had someone else come in. I know that's risky in that, but you're right. Right now, he's in a dilemma. How do you get out of it? He's been dragging it on for so long that I really don't have the answer right now. Of course, I don't have the intelligence either. So my advice would be to finish him off, put him out once and for all, and quit doing this back and forth with him. You're not going to negotiate with a bunch of lunatics over in Iran. They're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Do you think, I hear you. Let's, if we have to, just finish them off, when in Iran, bring in the troops home. But is that going to happen? Can we, quote unquote, finish them off? Or are we dreaming? And do we think we have a lot
Well,
more power than we really have? Do we think we have a lot more power than
here,
we really have as a nation?
here's a problem. You can't always win with an air war. So usually if you're going to finish off and be successful, you almost have to send in ground troops. And that's not going to work at all. That would be catastrophic. So he's in this position right now. I don't know what his initial plans was when he first started this, other than the fact to prevent them from the nuclear weapon, which he claims he has. But now it's turning into a bit of a quagmire. So
Yeah,
you try to bomb them as much as you can and get them to capitulate. That's about the only options you have.
yeah. The last program a month ago, I took issue with the quagmire analysis of what was going on with the United States and Iran. Now I don't, but instead of using the word quagmire, I'm saying that Iran is a mousetrap, and Donald Trump has been caught in the Iranian mousetrap. And I don't see how this is going to end well for the United States. I would like it to end well for the United States. I think there's lunatics running Iran. I think they would use a nuclear bomb on us. And I think eventually, when they get the technology, they're going to try to use a nuclear bomb on one of our cities. And so there's an incentive to try to, take them out now and eliminate the nuclear threat, but that's easier said than done. And you got to be, careful about that. And so this is really a very challenging situation for the country. And Donald Trump, the man who said he will prevent us getting into endless wars, has gotten by design into an endless war that he started, that he decided he wanted to get into. This is a war of choice for the United States. We're not the attackers. We are the attackers, actually. We are the attackers. The Iranians were attacked and so on. So, Mayor Mandel, my goodness, oh my goodness, but talking about issues, there are some big issues that we have to talk to the mayor about tonight a little bit. I don't want to get into too much, but what is going on with the geese? The
Yeah,
geese in Eldridge.
unfortunately,
What's going on?
we had a bunch of geese that unfortunately that we had to have the USDA come in and remove. They've been growing in numbers over the last several years. It's gotten to a point where the walking path in the park itself was turning people away because of the amount of goose feces that was being laid down by these geese. You can't let them go in another area and hope they don't come back, because they do. They migrate back right where they came from. So the Eldridge Park Preservation Society did contact the DEC, who referred them to the USDA, and this was the only way to do it, unfortunately. It was to euthanize them. And now going forward, we're going to try to mitigate the problem. Well, we've been contacted by a couple of different people to see if we can prevent this in the future.
Okay. Mayor, the geese have been euthanized. How many were removed from Eldridge Park to be euthanized?
They told us 250.
250 geese. Now that's a lot of meat. 250 geese, and the meat is being distributed to food banks around New York State. Is
That's
that
exactly what the USDA told us. Yes,
okay?
we had to pay a processing fee for that. So yes.
Okay. Now I have a question. As a gesture of goodwill and kindness, will they not distribute the geese meat to the food bank of the Southern Tier? Because a lot of the folks may not want to be eating the geese they used to, interact with at Eldridge Park.
Yeah, that's up to the USDA. They're the ones that are handling it.
Okay,
So,
okay. Well, I appreciate your comments. And by the way, I wanted to mention something that I think is very important, and I want to do it now on tonight's program. Um, a special announcement: my 10th Unity in the Community celebration will take place on Saturday, November the 7th, from 1 till 2 at the Empire Sports and Events Center, 300 North Main Street in downtown Elmira. This will be a nonpartisan community event, my 10th Unity in the Community event, and it's to honor and celebrate America's and Elmira's Unity in the Community mayor. Yeah, Dan Mandel, third term right now as mayor of Elmira, very much into unity in the community. I've been doing these unity and community events for 5 years, Mayor Mandel, and you've been there with me. I think I remember the first one, we had a march to City Hall. And I remember that I was in a wheelchair at that point because I, at that point, was not able to walk, take the walk and talk the talk. I could talk the talk, but I couldn't take the walk. But you pushed me in the wheelchair.
I remember that.
Oh, right. I gave my address. Everybody fell asleep, asleep at the address, but you addressed the crowd very well and did a great job. So over the past 5 years, you've been active in the unity in the community movements. So having the 10th event and having the 10th event in November, decided to honor and celebrate you, Mayor Mandel, for your leadership. This is a nonpartisan event. It's taking place 4 days, 4 days after, 4 days after the midterm election. So the event is truly nonpartisan. The event is free, open to the public, and no tickets are required. Now, on another note, lots of people in the community are wondering and discussing whether Mayor Mandel will seek a fourth term and run for re-election in November of 2027. At my Unity in the Community event celebrating Mayor Mandel, want to announce tonight to the whole area, Mayor Mandel will officially make his future plans known. In other words, he will make a formal announcement on his candidacy. This will put an end to any speculation concerning Mayor Mandel in his future. Thus, my 10th Unity in the Community events to honor and celebrate Mayor Mandel will be a news event which will be open to all media outlets in the Twin Tier. And the geese, if they can escape, are welcome to fly back and so on. So anyway, I'm looking forward to this. You're the Unity in the Community mayor. You've been very active in all these events. I want to celebrate you. Also find out if you're going to run for a fourth term. There's a lot of speculation about it. A lot of people think they know one way or the other. Well, you haven't officially announced you will at this event. I have my 10th Unity in the Community event, right? Right, Mayor Mandel?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. There's been no official announcement.
Yeah, and you're going to do it on the event on the 10th annual political or 10th Political Pundit Night. My Twin Tier will be live at the Empire Sports and Events
Yes.
Center, which is the home of Dr. Coleman's Political Pundit Night. So I appreciate your doing that, and I look forward to seeing you at that event. So tonight we've heard from Jeff Murray, Nick Weinstein, Joseph Kolosinski, Georgia Verdier, Dan Mandel. We just heard from Dan Mandel. Tom Santulli, by the way, has a new system, has a new computer system, Tom Santulli, and the computer system has not been working properly. So I'm hoping Tom Santulli can join us. But if he doesn't, he got the new technology and it's not working. How often that happens with new technology? But I want to go next to Susan Betch-Tatoma. Susan Betch-Tatoma is attorney and pastor of the Shiloh Baptist Church in Corning. Susan Betch-Tatoma, this midterm election, we have the economy, we have the war in Iran, we have all kinds of things happening. How do you size up all this that's going on leading up to the midterm election? Susan Betch-Tatoma.
Well, sir, I'm going to disagree with everyone else. The demographics favor the Republicans. Older voters tend to go out in midterm elections and vote. The new redistricting in Texas and Missouri certainly favors a Republican win in those races. I think that people who are likely to vote are probably happy that the borders are now really 100% secure. It's nothing like it was. I think that other people who are voting may tend to be happy that the drug dealers are being stopped one way or another before they even get to our borders. And that's a lesson to other people who may try to run drugs into our country. I'm not happy with Iran, the way the war is being conducted and the protracted way it's being conducted. When President Trump told us he was not going to do that, he was going to be more isolationist. And I think some of us were looking forward to that. As far as the economy goes, lower to middle income voters have gotten a break with their no tax on Social Security benefits within a certain income range. Likewise, tips within a certain income range. I know it's advertised as no more tax on Social Security and no more tax on tips. That's not quite accurate because it is only in a certain income range. If you're above a certain income range, you are still going to be paying taxes. Excuse me, on your Social Securities and tips. But the demographic that's benefiting, usually when people see an increase in their paycheck, and especially substantial increase, for example, with people who, are baggage handlers and waitresses and, hard work where people get tips, and they see that they don't have to pay any taxes on their tips, I'm not so sure they're going to run and vote for the Democrats. There's also the social aspect. The Republican majority and gain has certainly put a stop to biological boys playing in girls' sports and biological men playing in women's sports. And I think that a lot of people are in favor of keeping people who are biologically advantaged from competing with people who are not as advantaged due to body structure and center of gravity and muscle mass issues. I think that most people who are going to vote probably have nothing against people who are prefer to think of themselves as a different gender, probably welcome in their homes, at their dinner tables. They just don't want them competing unfairly in sports, and the Republicans have certainly put a stop to that. There is a lot of controversy about the way ICE is doing its job, but we need to remember that ICE came into being after 9/11. And the Immigration and Nationalization Service was split up into 3 different organizations, and ICE was one of them to handle internal issues with immigration, and that's their job, and that's what they do. And some of these incidents that have occurred have occurred when people were interfering with their work. So maybe I'm not saying every single time that's the way it's been, but it's certainly been that way in a lot of the high-profile cases. So I don't think that affects people who are likely to go out and vote Republican. So I think that I'm going to say, Steve, to answer your question, I think there's a reasonable chance that the Republicans hold on to both houses.
Okay, Susan, I think that's not what usually happens when the opposite party is in power. Usually it's the outsiders that win and win
Understood.
big. But you don't think that's going to happen this time around, huh?
I think that there's a reasonably good chance that the Republicans will win because the alternative is the Democratic Party that's in chaos and is running a lot of left-wing candidates. I think if the Democrats, who knows, even in the last presidential election, if they had won someone more traditionally electable, but President Trump might not be the president, but they seem to be leaning towards these left-wing candidates, and I don't think that's going to do them a lot of good.
Yeah, a lot of Americans, I think, are going to be scared of left-wing candidates. Most Americans are not socialists and do not really have that proclivity. So we'll see what happens. See what happens with that, Susan Betch-Toma. I have here. I want to quote chapter and verse. Not from the Bible, but I want to quote chapter and verse from the Star Gazette. I have an article in front of me by Jeff Murray, who's on the program this evening. And I'm just going to read a couple of short paragraphs. Jim Hare, spent his adult life serving the Elmira community he loved as a teacher, city council member, mayor, and volunteer. And now the city is recognizing his service with a day in his honor. Mayor, this is the second paragraph, chapter and verse from the Star Gazette, reading an article by Jeff Murray. Elmira Mayor Dan Mandel, who we just heard from, has issued a proclamation declaring August 8th, Hare's birthday, as Jim Hare Day. Jim Hare Day, providing an ongoing reminder of Hare's numerous contributions to the city over the years. So Jim Hare is going to have his own day, Jim Hare Day in the city of Elmira, August the 8th. I think that was a great idea of Dan Mandel's to have Jim Hare Day. Jim, did you get a lot of positive reaction to Jim Hare Day, Mayor Mandel?
I sure did. A lot of people are happy to see that because Jim meant a lot to a lot of different people. So I was very happy to do that. The least I could do for a man that did so much for our community.
Yeah, he did. He did. Jim Hare, August 8th is forever going to be Jim Hare Day. Any special events at this point planned for Jim Hare Day, Mayor?
Nope, nothing at this time. I haven't talked to the family yet, but not at this time.
Okay, well, I'm glad that there's going to be a Jim. You were losing some great leaders. We lost Jim Hare, Frank Muccini over in Corning. We lost so a lot of great people that have been politically active. We've been losing, and I guess that's the way of life. You know, you're here today, and sometimes you're gone, and that's just the cycle of life. So. Anyway, I want to thank Susan Betch-Tatoma. Again, thanks, Mayor, for coming back in and talking about that. Next, I want to introduce and bring into the program tonight Deborah Lynch. Deborah Lynch is a member of the New York State Democratic Committee, a Hannonsport Village trustee. Deborah Lynch, good evening, and what say you about all you've heard this evening? Deborah Lynch.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of interesting points, both sides. And obviously, I'm hoping that we get some candidates in there that care as much as I do about the issues of the environment. Being on the village board now, I'm also a member of a quick clock board, which monitors the lake clarity and cleanliness and the levels of Keuka Lake. And we're having our own challenges because of rollbacks with environmental rollbacks that have been happening. And now we're kind of going backwards a little bit because we have to combat E. coli coming into our lake at very high levels, 10, 15 times the recommended levels of what the EPA wants, Environmental Protection Agency, and the DEC, which is the state levels. So now it's backpedaling, and this is going to, in fact, it feeds into every lake, it feeds into every wetland, it pollutes sources upstream, eventually affecting someone downstream. Our economy, our entire economy in the Finger Lakes region depends on making sure we keep clean air and clean water. And these rollbacks that are being repealed, the 2009 greenhouse gas and endangered finding for climate regulations, the proposed rollback of federal drinking water protections. I mean, we're going backwards. And if you remember correctly, EPA was formed, the largest environmental protection was formed under Richard Nixon. So it's just astounding to me that we're going this far backwards. And I believe this is going to be a hot topic. In fact, even talking to local farmers who, by the way, a lot of them voted for Donald Trump, are very unhappy with this, extremely unhappy, because it's affecting harvests, it's affecting who they can sell to, it's affecting the wineries who refuse to take grapes from them because there's chemicals being found in grapes that were never found before. This is a huge topic, and it's going to affect generations of people down the road who are going to be paying for this in terms of life and disease. It just breaks my heart, actually. And I don't understand it. The environmental issue should not be a partisan issue in any way, shape, or form. It should be what's right for us as human beings to protect our environment. And he's rolling back everything, just rolling it back and favoring his big donors and, the fossil fuel industry. And I believe this is going to be a hot topic in November. And I hope we take both, but I'm pretty certain we're at least going to take the House. So.
Do you think the economy is going to be, however, do you think the economy is going to be a more important issue than the environment?
Oh, I think it's going to go hand in hand. But yes, I think the economy, I mean, I did a little right up here and I said that with all the time, I could talk, important issues, our economy, healthcare, immigration, public safety, the cost of living. I could talk for hours about each one of those topics, but the one that's nearest and dearest to me, because I have a daughter and I know we all have kids on this panel. I think we all do anyway. And I do not want her to die of something look what's happening in Southside High School, for God's sakes, in Elmira. I mean, that's still an ongoing topic. And it's because they polluted the land. I mean, it's got to stop. It's got to stop at some point. Or our kids and our grandkids are going to keep paying for this. And climate change is, by the way, real, and it is happening, and it is changing the way we develop our coastal lands and the way that we deal with the changing water temperature in our oceans and what it's doing to our ocean life. All of this goes hand in hand. We're the only species on the planet that pollutes our own environment. And rolling back all these regulations is not helping.
Yeah, also, Susan, we're polluting outer space. I read the other day we have all these satellites now that are flying around the Earth, and there's not a lot of room, for shooting up the future satellites. It's going to be a traffic jam of satellites circling the Earth. That's crazy. That's insane. When did we get to this point? This insanity. Deborah. It's crazy.
Yeah,
You,
well,
you,
and don't even get me started on what we're doing to our oceans. It's just
yeah,
disgusting.
yeah.
We actually had to deal with, the other day, we brought in a new garbage company to deal with our garbage just in the village of Hammondsport. And we brought them in because we put it out for bid because they were offering us 2 days a month for recycling. And we'd only had 1 day. And so people, as a result, were throwing away recycling. Well, they came to us our last meeting and said, well, we accepted our bid, but now we're going to have to change our price because of gas. The cost of gas is so high now, we're not making any money. And
Yeah.
so you can see it's all intertwined, it's all cyclical. And I can tell you right now, that stuff's going to kill him in the midterms. All of it's going to kill him.
Well, we're going to see very shortly, less than 100 days left to the November 3rd midterm election. And as we come up to that November 3rd mark, there's going to be more and more controversy and more talk about the whole thing. A national debate is going to be happening in the days ahead. Less than 100 days to the midterm election. Deborah Lynch, you're a member of the New York State Democratic Committee, Hammondsport Village trustee, and I want to salute you for following in your mom's footsteps. Your mother, Ruth Young, was an activist. She was pro-environment, well known in the Twin Tiers. I considered her a good friend, and I'm glad to see you're following in her footsteps. Ruth Young, legendary in terms of her activism in the Twin Tiers and working on behalf of the environment to make things more healthy for everybody. So thanks again for being on the program. You're very loyal to this program, and I appreciate the fact you're on here and come on every time. Dr. Richard Dozier. Dr. Dozier is an author, a pastor, an educator. Dr. Dozier is coming live and direct from West Africa tonight, from Ghana. Dr. Dozier, a lot going on. Midterm election is coming up. The House and the Senate are up for grabs. And the economy is an issue. Of course, November election, the presidency of Donald Trump. Dr. Dozier, how do you look at all this? You've heard everybody, talking and sharing their viewpoints. Dr. Dozier, what's your analysis? How do you view all this? Dr. Richard Dozier, West Africa. Dr. Dozier.
Good evening, Steve. Yeah, it's good evening, Steve. It's good to be back on the show. Sorry I missed last time. I was looking forward to speaking. I was even going to agree with Nick. So that's probably why it all blipped out my internet system. But before I get to the election, I want to just touch back on Iran. And I want people to understand the root of the issue that took place, why America and Iran are at the place that they're in right now. Iran in 1951 went democratic. They elected a prime minister, a democratic prime minister. This was back in 1951. And he wanted an audit of the oil that the Americans and the British were getting out of his country, basically BP and I believe Exxon. And when their books were audited, they found that, they were losing 60%. Well, 60% of what was being taken out of the ground was not being accounted for. Therefore, he nationalized the oils in Iran. Well, America and England did not like that. So therefore, the CIA and the British equivalency went in and started this false propaganda, in which it then that overthrew the prime minister. And the Americans and the British brought back the Shah of Iran, who for the next 27 years was a brutal dictator. But as long as he was in agreement with America and the West, they did not mind. Here we are, America is supposed to be a democratic country, supporting democratic ways, but supporting a dictator. And so, therefore, the people of Iran, once when the Shah got sick and was coming to America for medical treatment about cancer, then and the people were afraid that they were going to bring him back and put him back on that the peacock throne. This was their fear. So they had their elections and they brought in the Ayatollah Khomeini. And from that point on, that is where the situation really became very brutal between the Iranians and the Americans. But the Americans brought this problem on themselves. That's why the division is there this morning. You know, and I cannot agree with people saying that Iran is a terrorist state. I cannot agree with them saying that, oh, if they had an atomic weapon, a bomb, they would use it. No, that's a lot of propaganda that America has thrown around in order to have this fear of the Iranian people. They're peaceful people. Listen, America has celebrated its 250th birthday. Of the 250 years this country's been in existence, I believe it's something where around a number of 234 years of it, America has been involved in some kind of conflict, some kind of war. And almost its total existence, this country has been in war with some other country or within itself. Because that takes in the Spanish-American War, war against the Native Americans, so forth, so on. So here again, my mama taught me. She said, when you point your finger at somebody else, you got three pointing back at you. America has a whole lot of fingers pointing back at itself with all the propaganda, the lies that it has projected forward. And so when people start talking about Iran, they need to start looking at the history of why the Iranian American situation is the way it is. And yeah, we had that hostage thing where they held American hostage. And what did the press blow it up? America held hostage. No, it was what, 40 people that were, I'm forgetting the exact number, that were being held hostage. Yes, they were Americans, but, there was a reason behind it. And so now Trump had promised in his campaign, oh, no wars. We won't get into these long, drawn out wars. And what are we in? And one of the reasons why, because Trump felt that he could make a better deal than what Obama made. Obama made a deal without having American lives killed. And what we've had, 6 troops already, American soldiers killed. And now the report has come out that over 600 have been wounded in this whole little, this war with Iran. And so, but with Obama, when he made that peace deal with the Iranians, I mean, nobody got killed. I mean, we were still, the Strait of Hormuz was still open to for ship travel. The oil was coming, gas prices were not down, but they were not as high as they are now. The funny thing is that Obama is living rent-free in President Trump's head so much that this man is trying to outdo Trump, and Trump is trying to outdo Obama, and it's unfortunate that the American public is paying the price for it.
Dr. Dozier, thank you for delineating your viewpoints in terms of the U.S. and Iran. My question to you is, you're an expert on this. You know the history. At this point, what can Donald Trump, what should the United States do to end the war with Iran? What should we do, in your opinion? What is the prescription, Dr. Dozier?
Well, here again, peace talks take take time. It was 18 months that Obama was in peace talks with him before they came up with a deal. And here it gets. So it is calling for doing an MOU, having, no conflict during that time frame, and working on peace negotiations and sending in real negotiators. I mean, you got Jared Kushner. I mean, he's looking to get land out of this whole issue. I think America also needs to cut ties with Israel because it's Netanyahu pulling Donald Trump's strings. And so therefore we need to say, hey, Israel, that's your issue with Iran. We're not going to get involved, and go for some serious peace talks to resolve this whole issue. And that's what really needs to happen.
So I think what I'm hearing is this is something that can't be solved quickly. It's going to take peace talks that might take a long time. And what we need to have are genuine professional negotiators talking
Correct.
with the Iranians, and not folks like Jared Kushner and so on. So that's your prescription for ending or dealing with the United States and the Iranian war that currently exists.
Correct, correct. Because here again, America, the arms, we're running out of arms. And what people don't understand is right now, even with America and the African countries, where does lithium come from? Uranium and cobalt. And you have the Sahel states, which those three countries have come together, and they've nationalized their cobalt industry, so forth, so on. They've kicked out the French, they've kicked out American troops, and they've nationalized those mines. And the cost now is going to be market rate if they're going to deal with the U.S. at all, because the way that Donald Trump has been behaving toward African nations, and we know what he called the African nations. Now he's got to deal with them for all these minerals.
Yeah, okay. I'm listening to you, and so your prescription or advice, whatever you want to call it, for dealing or ending the war with Iran is to have serious, long peace talks, which could last for years, maybe into the next presidential administration, actually, right?
True, yes. I think it will go on, and it will be the next person who serves as president that will make some decisions on. If Donald Trump, decides to say, well, to swallow ego and his pride, which we know he's not going to do that he would just give them what they want, the Strait of Hormuz, so that they can control it, because it is in their area. And what, $300 billion that America has frozen on them, that's in America banks not right now, and give them back their money. And
Now,
just say, hey,
if the United States says, okay, Iran, you can control the Strait of Hormuz, there are other waterways like that around the world. Should countries that border those other waterways, should they be in charge too, just like Iran will be in charge of the Strait of Hormuz, in your opinion?
that would have to be some negotiations. But yes, it's in their territory, so they have that right. I mean, look, this man renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. So, if you're going to take possession of things like that, you've got to give other countries that same consideration.
So this will change the international order if, in fact, different
Yes.
countries around the world can, charge tolls and be in control of waterways that are lined with their territory. Correct?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And look how Donald Trump has treated our allies. Right now the EU is not happy with him. All the EU countries. Look at what's happening with Canada. I don't know if people in the Twin Tiers are, hopefully, because it affects you directly, what's happening with the Canada trade deals right now.
Mhm. Well,
And so
well, Dr. Dozier, you are putting on the table tonight on the 44th Political Pundit Night a radical proposal that countries that border waterways that are now international, that those countries should control those waterways and charge tolls and so forth, and not just Iran and the Strait of Hormuz, but also other countries controlling their waterways and charging tolls. And so this would change things quite a bit. But you think when you look at it, that's the way the world should go, correct?
Yes, because if we look at it with all the trade that takes place and with all these tariffs that have been placed on these other countries, they have no other choice but to retaliate or to, to retaliate in some sense and make it a more fair play.
Okay. Dr. Richard Dozier is with us tonight, an author, a pastor, an educator. At one point, he was a vice president at Corning Community College. And I think that was a wonderful thing. You're being a vice president at the local college, and you've done so much
Thank
with
you.
your life, and it's always an honor to have you on the program. You articulate at times, you articulate viewpoints that are radical, and I think radical viewpoints should be articulated, and a show like
Yes.
this should present different viewpoints, whether they're conservative or radical. So I thank you for your honesty, Dr. Richard Dozier. I want to move right now to Christopher Callis. Christopher Callis is a community educator. Christopher Callis is the guy that puts on those college fairs open to everybody in the Twin Tiers, people that are old like me, Geiserheimers, people that are younger than me, Weisenheimers, and the really young people, the whippersnappers, all can go to his events. They're absolutely free. Dr. Um, Christopher Callis, what's next in terms of your community fair design in the Twin Tiers? What are you going to be doing next?
Well, thank you for having me on, Dr. Coleman. It's always a pleasure being here with the other people talking this evening about the hot topics across this world. First off, the upcoming Elmira Elks College Fair is going to be on May 26, 2027. We're looking to combine that with another local school. We're in the talks now for we have a day and an evening event. So it's getting bigger by the year, which is a wonderful thing to have. If we can pull this off, obviously, on the 45th Political Pundit Night, I will give you more details about the designated time and places. But the one that we moved to the Elmira Heights Central School for the Elks, because we ran out of space, as you saw when you were there, it was a tight combined, was a good problem. So we had wonderful turnout, gave away $2,000 in some scholarships, and it was excellent. I'll say again, if anybody on this particular panel here tonight wants to come, they're more than welcome. It's open to the public, and obviously it's run on donations. If anybody here wants to donate or has a company or has want to donate, like Danny Mandel and Deborah Lynch have done in the past, which I appreciate and thank you very much. We would accept all donations because it's run on public donations. So thank you very much for their donations and anyone else that's looking forward to donating and helping us keep this going for our community and particularly the students in this area. So that's what's going on right now with that. So there's your first question answered, Mr. Dr. Coleman.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much, Christopher Callis, the community educator. Chris, at this point, we have an election, a major U.S. election in less than 100 days. I'm thinking about right now Iran. I'm thinking about the economy. I'm thinking about, of course, the November election, thinking about Donald Trump and how he's going to end his second term in the White House. When you put this all together, this puzzle before us, a Rubik's Cube, how do you see things panning out between now and the election? What do you think is going to happen, Christopher Callis?
Well, I think that the Democrats are going to take at least the House. I'm going to go back to what I think Nick had mentioned it earlier in the beginning, that they are going to take the House. I can't say for sure about the Senate. Could be close, but I definitely think the Democrats are going to take the House from what I'm hearing and watching on our news channels here locally. The biggest thing is, going back to Georgia Verdier's comment, as always, get the souls to the polls. You got to get out and vote. Most importantly, you got to get out and vote. I think that's very important. I think if there's a big turnout, maybe it could be a blue ocean. I don't know. But you got to get people out to vote. I can't stress that enough. With that being said, just to let everybody know who might be watching around the world, or particularly New York State, the last day to register to be able to vote in the upcoming election for New York State is October 24th. You have to October 24th to be able to vote. So make sure you get out and vote if you haven't registered already. That's very important to do so. Also, going back to President Trump and this battle war in Iran, I'm not sure, but I can tell you this. I look at my gas prices, and every time I turn around, I'm racing to a gas station to find 404, 414, 419, 437. It's like out of control. And I'm talking the basic gas. I'm not talking the high stuff or diesel. I'm talking 87 unleaded, because it is crazy. And unfortunately, that's where we're at. I think that's going to have a big part in the election, in my point, or my thought process, due to your comment earlier about it's about the economy, stupid. I just spoke to a friend of mine from church who I didn't know had lost his job with a local health agency here, one of our big places. He was a vice president. 14 years he's with them. He lost his job. They let go a whole bunch of people in the white collar administration here locally. I did not know this, and I spoke to him. My heart goes out to him. He did find another job a few months later, but he's driving an hour and a half plus to his new job one way. And he's got, kids and a life and a lifestyle. And so maybe there's more to the economy. We don't know what's going on. So I think people might be voting more that way than we think locally around here. With going back to Iran, someone had mentioned, I don't know if it was Mayor Mendel, about you can't win a war just on air attacks. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. But I wish that we could have peaceful negotiations and come to a compromise. I hate to see more bloodshed on either side, life lost. I think that's terrible. But one thing I do want to point out, going back to voting, and I think Deborah Lynch brought this up, going back to the environment. If no one has mentioned anything about what's going on up in Niagara Falls lately, what's happening up there, what they've discovered, not just another Love Canal aspect, but it's about the Niagara County, the thorium pollution, and the radiation that's being found in backyards and also in people's basements, 10 times the EPA level. That's crazy. That's out of control, and people are going to be dying just like they did prior to that. So what's going on north of us? It could be happening right here in our backyard. As we know, there's PCB cleanups and things that have happened because of certain factories and places that put these possibly in the ground years ago. So I think it's very important if those EPAs and things are cut, they're not enforcing those rules or laws, they're not allowing them to do the cleanup. People are going to vote these people out of, at least I think they will be voting these people out of power and getting these laws reiterated. Yeah, that's not good. And I will take this to heart. I lost my father to PCB poisoning. And that's terrible. I watched this man rot away in front of me, and it was a horrible thing to see. And to see that the EPA is being taken away or destroyed or cut back, I'm not sure everything they've done, but no, I'm not a fan at all. I'm not a fan of that at all. And we need to do everything we can to keep the EPA and other things going to make sure that toxins and pollutants aren't killing my son, my grandson, great-grandson, whoever might come down the road. We have to clean this planet up. We only have one. So I think people have to get out and vote. That's another option. But again, I love our country, and I've said this before. We have to respect our leaders. We've elected them. And I will say one thing that wasn't mentioned. The 250th celebration that happened here in our country, we just did it. Everyone that celebrated the quincentennial, I don't know who had a great time or not, but I can tell you I was part of a committee that celebrated it here in our local village of Elmira Heights, and we put on a parade. Unfortunately, the rain didn't help that, but we had a nice turnout, try to celebrate that here for our country and our local community. So God bless America, and happy 250th birthday.
Thank you, Chris Callis. By the way, what I want to do, you bring this subject up of the 250th birthday of America that we're celebrating. I want to hear from Jim Hassel and then Willie Owens, two leaders in the community. Jim Hassel, a former Elmira mayoral candidate, he ran as a Democrat. Want to hear from Willie Owens, who's doing marvelous things with the young people in the community and his youth football league. Want to hear what's going on with that. And after we hear from Jim Hassel and Willie Owens, I'd like to poll the folks, the leaders on this program. And the question I want you to answer is, it's the 250th anniversary of America. Are you proud? Are you proud to be an American or not? I want you to speak on that. But before we go to that question, want to hear from Dr. Jim Hassel. Jim, you've been listening to all this. You've been listening to the comments made about the election. You've been listening about the war in Iran. You've been listening comments about the economy. And so at this point, Jim Hassel, Dr. Jim Hassel, community activist, former Elmira Mayo candidate, Jim Hassel, what say you? What do you say about this? I'm going to bring in Jim Hassel. Jim?
Okay, I want to talk about a variety of things. I think the economy certainly is an issue. President Trump did tell us that he was going to lower costs as soon as he got in. Well, we see what's happened to that. It's virtually everything he's promised us is turned to trash. Certainly not taking care of Americans. He's constantly getting us off balance with these chaotic ideas that he has that constantly keep us off balance. As I say, wasteful tariffs now again. You know, our farmers and business people are at loggerheads. They just don't know what to do. In terms of planning their futures, they're 10 years out or whatever they do. They're just thrown into chaos. What about the wasteful lawsuits that he has engendered and that we Americans are having to pay for? How many hundreds of millions or billions of dollars does that cost us? His vengeful acts. His failure to observe the rule of law. Nowhere is that more obvious than in his gerrymandering. He is a compulsive liar. His wasteful spending. We don't talk about balancing the budget, do we? I think that's an issue that should become important again. His refusal to aid Ukraine, his pleasure with other people who are tyrannical, such as Putin and Netanyahu and Xi and so on and so forth. I think and his turning against our allies, particularly as someone said, Canada, our greatest friend. I think that these are, just despicable acts. His refusal to deal with Netanyahu, I think this is something we don't talk about, but it's important that we do. Is Netanyahu, who started this war in Iran, turned it over to Trump and let him take it over. Netanyahu must be laughing over that. Finding no convincing justification for the war. And certainly Americans are fed up with that. I think particularly Dr. Dozier for his measured and much more accurate interpretation of the situation in Iran. I do disagree with his statement that maybe the Strait of Hormuz should not be free and open to traffic. I think it should be. I think all waterways should be, international ones rather. I think sending legitimate negotiators, that's an impossible feat. And the reason for that is that it's impossible to get anybody who's legitimate to do anything in our government under Trump, because all he wants are people who, are sycophants. His refusal to rein in Netanyahu in its genocide against the Gazans and its ethnic cleansing of Arabs, and I might add to that includes both Muslims and Christians in the West Bank. And thank you, Deborah Lynch. Trump is also the greatest enemy of the environment, preferring to deny the climate change and issues with the environment in order to enrich himself and his friends. I think that in the end, what I'd like to say is that we're suffering from a moral crisis. The issue should be far greater than allegiance to a party. We're dealing with a man who wants to be a tyrant, who wants to be a dictator, who wants to destroy our democracy. This is something that is a serious and frightening issue to me in our world today. And I think that our democratic foundations are at risk of being overturned. And I don't know what more to say about that. It's terrifying to me. So
Okay.
I see
Okay.
the issue and the elections coming up as being an issue, a question of confidence in President Trump.
Okay. Dr. Jim Hassel, educator, community leader. He ran for mayor as a Democrat and is very active in local politics. One point that's been made tonight by several people, um, when it comes to bombing your way to victory in a war, that doesn't seem to work. It didn't work for the U.S. in Vietnam. It didn't work in Dresden. Just bombing your way to winning a war seems not to work. And I just want to emphasize that. That's when people say you can bomb and bomb and bomb and win a war, that's ahistorical. And we'll see what happens. The other point I want to make is that in general, Americans hate politicians. Yes, it's true. Americans hate members of Congress. But you know something? They hate members of Congress, but they love their member of Congress, and they tend to send people back to Congress from their own districts. So there's a little bit of a contradiction there in the US of A. But Jim Hassel, thank you for your leadership in the community, and thank you for being on the program. Another leader here tonight is Willie Owens. Willie Owens is a community activist, a youth advocate, founder of the Chemung County Youth Football League. And I want to get Willie's take on what we've been talking about, but also I want to hear what's happening, Willie, with the Chemung County Youth Football League. What's going on with the league, and what are the new developments? Willie Owens.
Again, thank you for the invite, Dr. Coleman. Hello to everybody on the panel. I think we're doing very well this year. We're going to have physical sign up on the 15th and 16th of August. As of right now, we have like 100 and something people signed up already, kids. Last year we had 200. I think we're going to pass it this year. We're just looking forward to having a great season. We're reaching out to people in the community to be coaches as far as referees. We have a strong team. Again, Mr. Danny Mandel, the mayor, is on our board as well, and a couple other few people in our community to really help this thing come to fruition. So we're looking really good.
Thank you, Willie, for all you do in this community. And you're really making a difference in the lives of so many young people. And they're getting involved with athletics, productive activities. They're not out in the street getting into trouble. And you're a person that decided as a member of this community to make this happen. And so I just have to congratulate you for being a community hero. Community heroes, well, there's community heroes all over the place, but sometimes they're not recognized. And Willie, tonight I want to recognize you as a community hero for making a difference in the lives of so many young people. You do great work. And at this point, Willie, you've been hearing a lot of comments on the war in Iran, the economy, Donald Trump, the midterm election, less than 100 days away. Willie Owens, your take politically tonight.
First, as far as being a community hero, I have people who help pave the way. Again, Georgia Verdier. I knew Georgia for a few years, a lot of years, and she helped me out a lot. Danny Mandel as well. Deborah Lynch was always in my corner. She the one that got me to get into the politics. I was just strictly trying to save the community. First one, I think
You're welcome.
when Deb in Georgia was talking, and Mr. Callis as well, I think I'm the youngest in this panel, but I'm 37. And it reminded me when I was little, I seen a commercial of an Indian crying about the pollution, and that's what came to mind. Is like we're at a place in time right now, This pollution is so bad, it's killing, animals, humans, everything on Earth. I think we need to really get a hold of that and pay a lot of attention to that as well. Um, as far as what's going on, how I feel about Mr. Trump. I think, it's really the economy is really killing us really bad because a lot of people, and the people I deal with are financially in a good place financially, and they're really struggling, as far as gas prices, food prices, rent is going up, and that tends to affect people in our community to start dealing with other avenues to trying to get money. If it's doing crimes, we got to keep that in factor. And then you have a lot of people with mental health issues. A lot of them know how to deal with situations when they have no money or no food to sustain to our regular community. And again, community. I love my community. I love my city, and I think we need to form. As far as Democrats and Republicans, I think we need to get together for one common cause and do something great. I think we all come from religious backgrounds, and sometimes it's as religion and politics don't mix. But I think at times you have to fall back in religion to get your morals back. You know, I think we got caught up in other things so much we forget about our upbringing, our morals, and what's right for us in our community, being human beings. It's so important. I spend a lot of time talking to youth. I got to start spending a lot more time speaking to adults, and that's taken away from speaking with the youth. We need to get together and come to a common cause on how we can make this community better and bickering over this, that, and the third. I don't care, Republican or Democrat. We just need a person who's going to do the best job in office. And I think, as the polls will see, who's doing good, who's doing bad. We need improvement in a lot of things. I think, me personally, I think the Democrats will win the House as well as the Senate seat because people are very upset and very tired of what's going on in our nation. I think a lot of Republicans is turning their back on Mr. Trump. I think it's a time where, people said, oh, we had enough. You gave us, you came in saying you was going to do this, you're going to do that. You did none of what you said you was going to do. So I think people are getting fed up with that. And now they'll be hiding and voting against Trump in them booths. So I think we have a strong chance to win both houses. I think the House and the Senate.
Willie, go ahead.
Go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
Thank you. Thanks, Willie, for your analysis. I appreciate it. Good luck with the football program and what you're doing in the community. By the way, one thing I recognize you as a community leader, and as a community leader, you then recognize the people that have helped you along the way and have made a difference along the way. And one person I like to mention, Ruth Young, the mother of Deborah Lynch, she was very active in terms of environmental issues. So, people in this community that are doing things stand on the shoulders of others in the community that have done great things. And so it's not a situation where one person does it all. It's a situation where people help each other, and there are people that step up to the plate, so to speak, in every generation. Dozens of people standing up and getting together and working to make a difference and make a change. And that's what this program. I'm looking at who's on the show. Everybody in this show is a leader that, in their own way, is making or has made a difference. And I'm really proud of this program because of that. So thank you, Willie Owens. Now, talk about being proud. This is the 250th anniversary of America. And my question, and this is a brief answer. I don't want long answers. I want you to be very succinct. A couple of a few sentences, but be succinct. But I'd like to hear from you now on whether you're proud on the 250th anniversary of the United States. Are you proud to be an American? And I want to start with Nick Weinstein, a professional pollster. He's a professional political watcher. Nick Weinstein, are you proud to be an American? And if so, why? And if not, why not? Nick Weinstein.
Well, thanks again, Dr. Coleman. And yeah, I mean, absolutely, I'm proud to be an American. I think America is unique in history and as a country that has offered amazing opportunities, certainly to, my ancestors who fled, communist Russia and anti-Semitism and pogroms in Eastern Europe to come to America and to, in the matter of, a generation, be catapulted into a place of middle class life is something spectacular, and I think America continues to be a beacon for freedom and a beacon for good in the world in a way that no other country can compare.
Okay, thank you, Nick Weinstein. Nick is proud to be an American. Joseph Kolosinski, Associate Professor, Elmira College. The 250th anniversary we're celebrating in this country. Joseph Kolosinski, are you proud to be an American? Joseph. Joseph Kolosinski, is Joseph here? Okay, he must have.
Because I had myself muted. Sorry. Absolutely proud to be an American. I see myself as a patriot. I am less proud of our place in the world right now. I mean, I'm proud of America because we set forth with this set of ideals that all men are created equal. And we spent nearly 250 years expanding that and extending the franchise and welcoming more people in. And we seem to be backsliding on that. And I find that very troubling.
Joseph, thank you for your comments. I do think that when you look at the history of America, it's a history of conflict, and conflict over the years has led to inclusion. A lot of folks, in America have been excluded and discriminated against. I think of and have had problems. I think of people in the labor movement and women, and I think of poor people. I think there's all kinds of groups over the years have been excluded and discriminated against. And then over time, there's been more inclusion. So America, I think, is a work in progress. It's a work in progress, and there's a lot to be done. And a lot of things that are wrong with it, but over time, things I think do get better, and there's inclusion, and people, become part of the American story and the American dream. At this point, Georgia Verdier, I want to hear from you. Are you proud? Are you proud, Georgia, to be an American? Georgia.
I am, but before I say that, may I have a couple of words I want to first say? I want to thank Willie for reminding us of the importance of our spiritual foundation. I want to compliment the people who reminded us of the importance of environmental justice. And I want to say to Mayor Mandel, I have a plaque I need to present to Mrs. Hare, a memorial plaque, and I wish I could do it at your meeting. So you can let me know if that's a possibility. And in terms of being American, I am extremely proud of being an American because this country offers almost a limitless chance of possibility. The only thing I'm not happy about is the current political climate.
Okay, Georgia, I appreciate your comments. One thing about America, through the taking the souls to the polls, you can change things politically. You can vote the rascals out. If you think the rascals are in, you can vote the rascals out. So, Georgia, you're proud to be an American, despite its imperfections. I think you see it as there's opportunity to change things. So, Georgia Verdier, thank you. Dan Mandel, the mayor of Elmira, the unity of the community, Mayor Mandel. Are you proud, Mayor Mandel, to be an American?
Yes, I am. I'm very proud to be an American. We're not a perfect nation, but it's the best nation on earth. We have our struggles, but we always seem to pull through those struggles. And the last saying, let's cool the political ends on each side down and all work together like Willie and I do. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Mandel. I appreciate it. And I, again, appreciate your commitment to unity in the community. Susan Betch-Tatoma, attorney, pastor, Shiloh Community Church in Corning. Susan, we heard from you earlier this evening. Are you proud, Susan Betch-Tatoma, to be an American?
Absolutely, Steve. And you know that we have a legal system that has withstood the test of time for 250 years, which is longer than most governments, not most countries, but longer than most governments have been on Earth. And we've really done a good job with our checks and balances. And as you so wisely said, we can vote the rascals out. We have the freedom to speak freely, as we've been doing here tonight, very different viewpoints. We have freedom of religion, which is extremely important. People have died all over the world because of what and who they chose to worship. We can worship any way we want to here. There are so many wonderful things about our country. I've traveled all over South America, Central America, Europe, Africa, and there's no place like home. And not just, I don't think because I'm biased, but because the economy or the political system or the human rights just aren't there in so many places in the world. And I am so proud to be an American.
Thank you very much, Susan Betch-Tatoma. Proud to be an American. Deborah Lynch, um, Deborah Lynch, member, New York State Democratic Committee, Hammondsport Village trustee. Deborah Lynch, are you proud to be an American?
I'm proud to be living in a country that bases its government on a living, breathing document called the Constitution. And I believe that affords us the right to live free in this country, and we have to protect it at all costs.
Okay. I appreciate, by the way, everybody's chiming in on this, and you're very articulate, and you're just doing it in a succinct way, in a powerful way. Sometimes being succinct is the most powerful part of oratory. At this point, I want to turn to Dr. Richard Dozier. He's live and direct from Ghana in South Africa. He's an author, a pastor, educator. Dr. Dozier, are you proud to be an American? Dr. Dozier.
I'm going to say I'm lukewarm on that topic for the very same reasons why what Nick Weinstein said. His grandparents came here, they were able to make it. My grandparents were here way before his grandparents. And so generations, Black Americans have been in this country, and yet whites came from Europe and they excelled way above us. You know, all the kind of laws that were used to block Blacks from progressing. And so therefore, you know, I can't say that I'm proud to be an American.
Okay, you're saying you're lukewarm in terms of that question. We have several other people to weigh in right now. Thank you, Dr. Dozier, for your comments. Christopher Callis, community educator. Christopher Callis, are you proud to be an American?
Yes, I am very proud to be an American. I'm always proud to be American. I participated in the 250th planning for our village here, and I'm very proud. I wish I could say that that the weather would have been better, would have been a better, nicer celebration. It was rained out, but yeah. I'm very proud to be an American. I mean, my house shows it with everything I have on it, winning the most loud and proud in the village, and I'm thankful for that. And yes, God bless America.
Yeah, and you, by the way, you mentioned the village, and that's the village, of course, of Elmira Heights, and you're a leader and a very visible leader in Elmira Heights, Chris. So you're proud to be an American. Dr. Jim Hassel, educator, community activist, former Elmira mayoral candidate. Dr. Hassel, are you proud to be an American? Waiting for Jim Hassel to chime in here. See if Jim is here.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, I mean, my roots go way back in the United States, and you know, no matter what you do, you can't take it out of you. You know, no matter where you go, you'll always be an American, and it's important to recognize that as an important part of who we are, and to take pride in that. I think also we have a fabulous Constitution. We have a country that is truly a country of opportunity. And these are wonderful characteristics, and freedoms to discuss, freedoms of speech and whatnot. I will add one other thing. I was really proud to be an American during the World Cup, when Americans received people from all over the world with joy and welcoming. that really made me proud.
Uh, Jim Hassel, it made me proud also, the World Cup, and it also was a situation that unified the whole world, the World Cup. And I was proud to be an American during the World Cup and the competition and all of that. Willie Owens, Willie Owens, community activist, youth advocate, founder of the Chemung County Football League. Willie, are you proud? Are you proud on this 250th anniversary? Are you proud to be an American, Willie Owens?
I was born and raised in America, so I guess um that could be a loaded question. Because I guess being American is different for me from other people. The trials, tribulations I went through, how things. But I'm happy to be able to say I'm in a place where I have a little more freedom than other places.
Mhm. Okay, I appreciate your comments. Some of you might be wondering, well, what about Dr. Coleman? Is Dr. Coleman proud to be an American? He's asking everybody else, shouldn't Dr. Coleman say something about whether he's proud to be an American? And I am proud in the sense that um, this program and what I've done for years, I'd be in jail in most places. I would be in jail and I'd be incarcerated. Maybe they would behead me for what I've said over the years on radio and TV. And so I'm proud to be in a country where I can, in fact, talk about the issues of the day, can criticize the powers that be, make suggestions. So I'm proud to live in a country like that. Um, what a, at the to end toward the end of the program now. Jeff Murray, you started the program, and I have a couple of things for you, Jeff. Jeff, are you proud to be an American? And listening this evening, what is your take on tonight's discussion and tonight's program? Jeff Murray, Star Gazette, USA Today Network. Jeff Murray.
Well, Dr. Coleman, I absolutely am proud to be an American. On my mother's side of the family, they were here since fairly early on. My grandparents on my father's side were Scottish immigrants, so I've got both sides of it. But I think what we're doing here tonight, as you mentioned, is proof that the American experiment is still working. We're able to hear openly discuss what's going on in this country. And openly criticize things that we don't agree with, and like there's no soldiers knocking at our door, getting ready to throw us into prison. So, which would not be the case, as you mentioned, in some countries. And I think the other thing that hardens me a little bit is the fact that we have this diverse group of people tonight who obviously have very, very divergent views, and in some cases on the direction the country is going and the direction it should be going. Yet we can have this discussion and be civil and respectful of one another. It brings to mind you mentioned you quoted from the story that I wrote about Jim Hare, and you mentioned Jim Hare and Mayor Mandel. When I spoke to Mayor Mandel the other day for that story, I asked him. I said, okay, you're Republican. Jim was clearly a staunch Democrat. And then how did you get along? And he said, that's true. He said there are a lot of issues that they did not, particularly on the national stage, that they didn't agree with. But when it came to what was important here in the Elmira area, he said they put aside those differences and they worked together, because we were all part of the community, and they were, they were able to put aside the political differences and work together for a better Elmira. And that's really what I think everybody needs to do. As long as there have been politics, there's been rancor, there's been disagreement, and there's probably always will be. But there's got to be a way to find some middle ground. So yeah, I'm definitely proud to be American. Just to wrap up real quick on what the discussion tonight was. I still have no idea what's going to happen in November. Like I said, there's a lot of variables. I think history might play a role. What typically happens when you've got a power and the party in power in the White House doesn't always do so well in the midterms. But you've also got what happens in Iran is going to be a big driver, I think, depending on how that goes over the next few months. and you've got, the Democratic Socialists of America. I think they're going to have an impact. Some of the people who are maybe not on one side or the other, but are on fence sitters might have a big influence as well. So it's really, flip a coin and see what happens come November.
Okay, thank you, Jeff Murray. You've been watching the 44th Political Pundit Night, the summer sizzler edition, exclusively on mytwintiers.com. The next Political Pundit Night, number 45, will take place on Thursday night, October the 29th, less than 1 week before the November 3rd midterm election, right here on WETM and mytwintiers.com. I want to thank the staff and management of WETM, NBC Nexstar Television in Elmira, New York, for providing the platform for tonight's show. A special thanks to Patrick Allen, Valerie Miller, Jim Turpin, and Steve Eaton. Also a special thanks to my executive producer, Jenna Sweeney. WETM continues to be the leader in public affairs programming in the Twin Tiers. Well, it's 9 o'clock, the curtain goes down on the 44th Political Pundit Night. See y'all on the 45th. I want to thank the folks that tuned in, all the viewers. Thank you so much, all the pundits. And we'll see you at Pundit Night number 45. So long, everybody.